Hey, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. Thanks you to the folks here in Washington, D.C. who have joined me in the Brooke Mondale Auditorium, and thank you to all of you all around the country who have taken time at your computers or in your conference rooms to huddle together and have a chance to chat. It is a bright, sunny spring day in Washington, D.C. It's a little crisp and cool, but there is a sense that spring finally is here, at least in this part of the country. And for that, many of us in this part of the country are very grateful. It's been a long winter. While it's always nice to get out and see so many faces and get all of your questions, the timing today comes at a particularly unique moment in the history of the multifamily organization, coming as it does just a little bit more than a week from when we received affirmative direction from the Congressional Appropriations Committees to launch forward with the multifamily transformation, with one key modification that all of you by now should know about, which is the fact that asset management employees will have the opportunity to remain in their current locations. It is my hope that you all had a chance to hear from the Secretary in his remarks. He spoke directly and personally in a very powerful way to all of us. I hope as well you had a chance to hear from our Commissioner, Carol Galante, who also felt it very important to her personally to be able to communicate with all of you and express how important she thought this juncture was and to help think a little bit about what it means for all of us next. Now, in some sense, it's my turn to step forward, chat a little bit, reflect a bit on where we are, but also to do something that the Secretary and the Commissioner weren't really able to do, which is to begin finally, I think, to begin to articulate at least the path that we're headed on and how we translate this direction from the Hill to an actionable plan. First, and I know I've said this before, but I do understand very deeply, very personally, because I've felt it the same way as all of you have, just simply the uncertainty that has surrounded the transformation. And I know that's been very, very, very challenging for all of us. My hope is that our conversation today begins at least to strip away some of that uncertainty and talk about what we're doing for multifamily. Let me talk about one small change that I can very clearly announce with definition today, and that is a little bit of a rebranding in our efforts around the transformation. Many of you have seen, and whether it's the email address or other references, to the acronym MFT. Maybe you speculated on what that meant. Maybe it seemed obvious to some of you. In any case, we are changing that acronym to a new tagline for this effort called Multifamily for Tomorrow, MFT. Because that is what we're working for here today, is really what we do now, the plans we put in place, the thinking we do allows us to build an organization for tomorrow. It allows us to effectively tackle the next generation of challenges that will come to us in the work that we do in serving the mission of HUD and the Office of Multifamily Housing, how we improve our business model, and how, at the end of the day, we cultivate an exceptional environment for our people doing the work that they do. When a particular office requires additional support due to a spike in volume, another office will be able to step in to assist by sharing the workload. And that's one example of where we will get to and the work that we need to come to. And I will say there are 4 components altogether up on the board that talk about multifamily for tomorrow. 3 of them are flow from the workload sharing. The final component at the bottom there talks about the organizational structures and headquarters in the field. So let me run through all of those in a little bit of detail. So first of all, on the workload sharing, you all know that this work is being piloted in several of our hubs and has received positive feedback from both employees and our customers. And we know, for example, on the production side, that because of workload sharing, we've had an amazing success in eliminating the queues. It was not that long ago that some offices around this country had stacks of boxes lined up in the offices of files, applications that they literally did not have a chance to even get to, that they literally had not even had a chance to start processing. It is amazing to think of how recent that was. It was just 2 years ago, last year. It was just 6 months ago. But today, those boxes are gone. We have no more queues in the offices, any of the offices in which we work. Partly there's some economic stuff going on there, but most of that is workload sharing. And we finally closed out the last queue, very exciting, 2 months ago, actually moving out a whole set of files out of our Los Angeles office. So thank you to those receiving offices that took that workload sharing, Seattle and Newark, Philadelphia, Denver, and others stepped forward, put out a hand to help take that work on. And asset management side, we're piloting as well in several hubs and getting positive feedback there. The underwriter model is a great example of how we can begin to move our organization to look more like our private sector peers, how we can emulate some of the best practices that have made for much more successful work environments, how we can create an opportunity for our frontline staff to actually get work assigned to them that they can make progress on, that they can be accountable for, that they can deliver on. We can have more specialized teams that deal with more specialized kinds of work. The account executive model will align with the asset management portfolio according to staff expertise rather than necessarily geographic location. As you know, we have an account executive, a senior account executive, and a troubled asset specialist team. Account executives will manage the not troubled and non-complex portfolios. Senior account executives will handle the troubled and complex assets. And the troubled asset specialists will focus on our riskiest assets overall. By implementing these specialized roles in asset management, we improve our risk management practices. We save taxpayers money, right? That's actually what we do. And we facilitate clear paths at the same time for our own employees for career development and create opportunities for our employees to learn and grow their skill sets. And then streamlined organizational structures. So we're doing that both in headquarters and we're doing it in the field. In headquarters, many of you here in this room know intimately, we're realigning our structure into 4 primary offices: production, asset management, portfolio oversight, recapitalization, and field support and operations. These changes reduce duplication, they provide better support and service to the field and to our external stakeholders. So for example, our Office of Asset Management now includes divisions that once spanned several offices, with our Office of Housing and Grant Administration and our Office of Contract Administration and Oversight now merged into that larger Office of Asset Management. And our Office of Development is now renamed more correctly our Office of Multifamily Production. And our Office of Recapitalization replaces our Office of Affordable Housing Production and brings together several new functions that it didn't historically have. On the field side, the chart that you saw there shows what it means to begin to move to a 5-region model. Each of the 5 regions has one single hub that provides the hub director and the hub leadership for the larger regional area. Here you can see how each of these 5 regions break down. And critically, you'll see a distinction here on this chart relative to what we've shown you before. This actually shows a whole docket of additional offices, in fact, all of our offices, that will continue to have staff, asset management staff, under the approval that we have from the Hill. So in the Fort Worth region, you can see that Fort Worth and Kansas City remain as what we call the core offices, while offices like Albuquerque, Des Moines, Houston, Little Rock, New Orleans, Oklahoma City, and so on continue to play a role in the asset management function of the organization. So starting in wave 1, the non-asset management employees located in those non-core offices, offices like St. Louis or Tulsa, will relocate to core office locations in accordance with the preference survey results that they did through the preference survey process that we had done before, whereas asset management employees will continue to remain in place wherever they sit. Now, I should say that these changes that we got through the congressional approval did not require structural changes. So even though we have asset management employees in place, again, we still have a five-region structure. But there are changes as we organize ourselves and as we think about what this means that will ripple through into what it looks and feels to actually be an asset management staff person on the ground in these regions. One change, and this is an example looking at the southeastern region, which has Atlanta and Jacksonville as its original hubs, is that where before we would have really only had one production division for that entire region and two asset management divisions, now in this region we actually have an additional division in place to reflect the fact that we have more staff located in more of the what we call the non-core local offices that are out in the field. So all those non-core locations are part of the organization in the hub and satellite. So if you are a staff person in Nashville on the asset management side in the Atlanta region, you now report to a division director that actually sits in Atlanta or in Jacksonville. And functionally many of the branches that now are in the asset management area, those branches will sit in the non-core offices that we have out in the field. Now we're working right now still to kind of work out the brass tacks of what does that actually mean. What does it mean to not have a program center director position anymore in your office? What does it mean now as somebody who works in an office in which a division director is not located to actually report up the chain to somebody who is located in that different office? So defining that supervisory structure is something that we're still working on and trying to figure out the best path forward. And we'll get back to you on that over the next couple of months. Let me talk a little bit about the timeline of what we see the path forward in all this work. So first of all, let me start with headquarters. Headquarters, in fact, now is poised for a variety of reasons to be kind of the first part of the transformation out of the gate. And in fact, because the headquarters plan is wholly unchanged from the actions that the congressional committees took earlier this month, it is the piece that can get going the fastest. So we expect the buyout window to open sometime in the next several weeks, not months, weeks. And that buyout window will be open for a couple of weeks. Our directed reassignments letters will be sent over a period of time towards as the fiscal year rolls forward. Moving folks within headquarters to their new roles. Many employees in headquarters will switch either offices or roles or titles or job functions. And at headquarters, employees will have till the end of summer to move off the roles if that's their desire, with training starting in late fall. On the field side, and here we're really talking about Fort Worth and Kansas City, this timeline provides a little bit of an estimate of what we think is most likely for our time frame at this point. Now, you all know as well as I do, there have been a lot of times in the past when we've put dates and months up on the board here, haven't been able to deliver through on these on those expectations. And again, I had to caveat that all this timing is still subject to change. What we're giving you is our best estimates as we currently have them, and there's still work to be done. But here's what we think we can do right now. The first is that in May and June, we hope to roll out a job swap program to afford a particular opportunity to our production employees that are located in those non-core offices, as we call them, that prefer not to relocate. So for production employees and for operations employees, remember that generally speaking, your option is either to take a directed reassignment into Fort Worth or Kansas City, or to take a buyout. The job swap is kind of a third option, and that is, where possible, to identify opportunities to job swap with other comparably qualified employees, either in other HUD program areas or to some degree, at least, into multifamily asset management roles where those employees may be taking buyouts. Now, to qualify for those swaps, employees on both sides are going to have to be qualified for the jobs that they swap into. And that process has not yet been fully articulated. It's something that we're working on very hard right now to fully articulate what those standards will be and make sure we have a very clear rules of the roads for how to operationalize that. In June and July, we plan to actually open the buyout window for all of those eligible employees either in offices that are not part of those, either in the offices that are not Fort Worth or Kansas City, and or for job functions that will not continue in the future. Employees who do successfully apply for and accept that buyout offer would have all the way until October, or in some cases possibly November, to actually leave the roles. Now, meanwhile, we'll be putting a number of job opportunities, merit staff opportunities out for folks to actually apply for. And we expect that all employees would have opportunity to apply for those merit staffing opportunities over the course of the summer. So those opportunities will be opportunities to advance your career and would be eligible to all staff, as well as in some cases as well to external candidates. And then lastly on this timeline, the thing to see that's probably a lot of interest to you all is that the staff who do choose to relocate into Fort Worth or Kansas City would be required to report to duty in their new location, which at this point we expect to be in November or December. And we would expect to kick off the training regimen for those staff in their new roles, in their new functions, over the course of the fall. Okay, so employee options during the transformation. Let's review kind of what the choices are that you can make as an employee as we go through this. First of all, in headquarters, the options facing employees are largely unchanged from the original plan. So employees occupying eligible positions are given an opportunity to apply for a buyout, and a position eligibility for that buyout is based on whether or not that position exists in the future state model. So if your job continues, you're not eligible for a buyout. If you're reassigned into a new job under the future organizational chart, you would be eligible for a buyout. Most of the employees, in fact, in headquarters who choose to remain and don't take that buyout will be reassigned into a new position. And the office directors for each of your offices will be the ones who will be providing you quite a bit more information on the training and the support that will be coming behind that transition to make sure that you're well positioned and prepared to take advantage of that new office structure. In the field, employees in non-core offices will follow a slightly similar path in that they'll still be able to apply for a buyout if they so desire. That's across the board. In addition, as I talked about, the option to engage in the job swap program process if they have an opportunity to do that and are eligible. They'll also have an opportunity to voluntarily relocate. So if they would still choose to take advantage of the preference survey, if they would still choose to relocate to an opportunity outside those non-core offices, they can do so. Or they can apply for merit staffing with the jobs that we're posting on usajobs.gov over the course of the summer. And take essentially with the voluntary relocation option still being one that will be honored if those folks choose to take it, but they will have certainly more options and more flexibility than they would have otherwise. In the core offices, by which I mean the 12 offices where we have hubs and satellites, buyout eligibility will be a little bit more restricted. So buyouts would only be available to folks who actually have a current position title that won't exist in the future state. And those individuals will receive directed reassignments to new roles for many of their staff. Now, again, for those staff, they'll have merit staff opportunities to apply for as well, promotional opportunities, and I encourage all of you to take advantage of those. And those hiring positions, we'll get more information out on them over the next couple of days, couple of weeks, so you have more clarity about how that process will work. That's the overview. I think that's the highlight a little bit. I want to pause there and take a few questions, either from folks here in headquarters in the audience, as well as from folks in the field, as you try to digest some of the information that I've given you, and hopefully maybe answer a few other questions that you may have on the mechanics of how this all works. Question, what will the future look like for asset management in non-core offices after production employees relocate? So I alluded to this a little bit earlier in my remarks, that this is still an area that we're trying to understand. So one key difference certainly will be that it will only be asset management employees in those offices. So there will be fewer job functions there will also, frankly, be fewer people because those other individuals will have left or taken buyouts. The other distinction is clearly the kind of work that folks will be doing will be different. They will have been migrated into those new job descriptions. They will have benefited from the training opportunity that comes with the reassignment into those new opportunities. They will now be not just housing project managers, they will be account executives and operating under the new business model. The other piece of it is that the program center director position won't exist. It's not part of the future organizational chart. Instead, those staff will report to a branch chief, which is responsible for asset management duties. That branch chief, in turn, will report up to an asset management division director. Now, it'll look a little bit different, I suspect, in our larger offices, where we might have 10 or 12 or 15 or more asset management employees, versus our smaller offices, where it might be 1 or 2 or 3 asset management employees. And how that works in practice, I think we're still working through some of those details. It will be important to have some supervisory support, whether that's remote or physically present. And I think part of that will depend just on how the math works and how things play out as we go through this process. Question: what is the job exchange program that employees have been hearing about, and how will it work? The job, what we sometimes call the job swap or the job exchange program, is a very elegant construct that basically suggests, offers up a different opportunity for folks who don't want to take a buyout, but maybe have a colleague who does, or folks who don't want to relocate, but maybe have a colleague who does. And the job swap concept basically is, look, if you have 2 employees who today are working in different divisions within HUD, different offices, different roles, but both of them actually have experience to do the other person's job. They actually meet the minimum qualifications. The supervisors have met them, reviewed them, interviewed them, confirmed that determination. The job swap idea is that they both can switch positions. That means that, for example, if you have a CPD employee who is ready for a buyout, and you have a multifamily employee who is otherwise qualified for CPD and wants to stay in that office because he's production and doesn't want to be reassigned, he can take advantage of that job swap. They can do that swap, and everybody benefits. The CPD person gets a buyout. The production person has an opportunity to continue to use his skill sets in that local HUD office. That construct was actually negotiated and very actively supported in our conversations with the unions, with AFSCME. And it's based on similar job swap programs that have worked very successfully in other federal agencies in similar kinds of contexts. The piece that we're still definitely working on to try and figure out the exact mechanics of how it will work is the multifamily to multifamily job swap, which was not exactly really imagined or anticipated when we were doing that work, coming up with the job swap program, but in fact does have applicability, can have applicability here. Again, the opportunity would be if you have an asset management employee who wants to take a buyout, and you have a production employee who doesn't want to relocate but wants to continue to work. And the production employee actually has a background, a skill set, an ability to do asset management, and the supervisors have evaluated and vetted that. The job swap program would allow the production person to stay in place as an asset management employee rather than relocate into one of the core offices. Will voluntary relocations be possible for asset management employees who wish to relocate to a core office? The answer there is actually yes. So one of the very nice things about where we've landed is for Fort Worth and Kansas City, if you had a preference survey, if your preference survey indicated you wanted to relocate, you still want to stick with that commitment, you still want to move, you still want to take advantage of that reassignment, you can. The fact that asset management employees can stay in place doesn't mean that they can't choose to leave and relocate to another location if they want. So again, the preference survey that all of you completed who work in those non-core offices, we still intend to honor, and we will stand behind that and work to relocate you to those new jobs and those new locations if that's what you desire. Question here about relocating ahead of my wave. Will early relocation be an option for me? Great question. This has come up a few different ways. Right now, we can only offer a relocation for folks in Wave 1 because of the availability of funding, what we have to support that. It's not possible today for us, for somebody who did, for example, who might today work in Milwaukee but indicated a preference survey that they want to relocate to Atlanta. We can't kind of ahead of that wave go ahead and relocate that person to the new role. We simply don't have the funding to support it today. That said, clearly there are going to be quite a few merit staff opportunities that are getting posted. To the extent that you are applying for a merit staff position in one of these core offices in one of the later waves, and you are successfully accepted into one of those merit staff opportunities, that is a situation where we will endeavor to try and accommodate you with relocation assistance ahead of your wave. But otherwise, for the most part, the folks who will be able to actually access relocation funds to assist in the moving will be the employees in the non-core offices in Fort Worth and Kansas City who are moving into either Fort Worth or Kansas City or one of the other core offices. Based on the changes to the transformation plan, will I still be eligible for a buyout? So the answer there is yes. So the good news is that we believe we've figured out a way to ensure that all of our employees in the non-core offices are still able to get buyouts. We don't believe that the fact that some asset management employees will still stay in place changes that dynamic. So if you're an asset management employee in any of the non-core locations, you can still take advantage of the buyout if that is your choice to do so. We're certainly very happy to be able to continue to honor that commitment that we made to you, even despite these changes that have taken place. Question, what is the resume bank? Another very good question. So we talked about job swap as being a kind of a third option. So you can relocate, or you can take a buyout, or a job swap might be the thing you want. Another option that we have created for folks that I really encourage you to take a look at, get some familiarity with, is the resume bank. And this is something we're still working to stand up, but the basic idea is that for folks who are doing hiring in HUD right now, we would love to find opportunities for multifamily employees in those non-core offices to be able to take advantage of other opportunities within HUD if that's what they would rather do, as opposed to staying in their location and taking a buyout. And we have created a way for multifamily employees to get some degree of priority in some of those internal positions that will be getting posted by HUD over the next several months, and to make available to our colleagues in other HUD program offices, the PIH, the CPDs, the FPMs of the world. We have offered to them basically the idea that we will stand up a resume bank where they can actually go first to pull down the resumes and see if they have any good qualified candidates in multifamily that they can go to first before doing the full merit staffing process. So that's a way to kind of streamline the process, give folks an opportunity to pull in some of that multifamily talent if it works for them and it works for you, and gives you all another option if for whatever reason you are unable to either make the move to another location or decline to take a buyout, but still would like to take advantage of those kinds of opportunities. I think those are a bunch of questions that come in from the field. Want to just see if there's anybody in the audience here in Brook Mondale with any questions that they'd like to ask. Don't be shy. Any more field questions? Let me just say then, in closing, a couple of things. First of all, I hope that some of the information that we shared with you today is helpful in giving you a sense of where we're headed. I think you'll also see in some of this that we're giving you our best guess on timing. We're giving you some of the details that will get filled in over time as we do some more of the work. But our goal is to get there. We have done a lot of talking about this change. It has been noted to me more than a couple of times that we're just about at just past the 1-year anniversary of when we first announced this. I know many of you are ready for that change. You're ready for things to play out. You're ready for the opportunities that we've talked about, and you're keen to see those things begin to materialize. I share that. I'm very keen for us to begin executing on this plan. I'm very keen to begin to make this talk become actions. And these actions begin to translate into better work opportunities, better working environments, more productive jobs, more job opportunities for all of you, and migrating our business to a business that's going to work better for the communities that we serve and the people that we serve. I think that we're going to get there, and I think that we're going to get there in a way that will have a lasting impact. When we, 5 years from now, when we, 10 years from now, look back at this moment, I think we will look back at this moment and recognize it as a major inflection point in this business, a major inflection point in many of us for our professional and personal trajectories. And I know there's a lot of that still needs to get filled in. I think there's a lot that we still need to execute on. I know many of you will have quite a few choices, maybe a plethora of choices to make in terms of what you want to do and what the right next step for you is. But I definitely want to say, stick with us on this as we execute this vision. Join with us in supporting the work. Look for opportunities where we can do better. Continue to raise your voice, both to your supervisors and up the channel to us where you can. Here on this chart are a couple of the examples of where we expect to have some more opportunities for feedback that you can give. Next week, there will be a Commissioner Town Hall for the Office of Housing. There will actually also be a secretarial webcast, I think, as well, where this may get touched on a little bit. We have targeted the end of the month for regional town halls, where we will actually be bringing together folks region by region to have more informal and open conversations, to raise their questions, get answers, get feedback. And we will also be working to update our frequently asked question guidance. That will be coming out in early May. So as you get those questions, keep sending them over to us. The mft@hud.gov email address continues to be the way to get information. So send those questions in. Give us your ideas. Give us your suggestions. Continue in a dialogue. I think the best kind of work that we ever do, whether it's working on an asset, whether it's problem solving, tricky loan that's come in, whether it's dealing with a complicated issue on the ground with a tenant or an owner. The best kind of work that we do is the work which comes from a free and open conversation and a collaborative set of engagement. So take the work that you're doing day to day and use that to build on and think long-term about how we can make this effort a successful one that gets us all to a much better place, both personally and as an organization, as a team. With that, I will wrap it up and close it out, and thank you for your time this afternoon, this morning. Have a great day.